term, if you will, where we are going to review the materials of the 3 previous workshops and anything else that comes to mind. So much so for that. Now, we can discuss any particular aspect of what we have covered either on the attachment series or the anger series or in any general way. Uh, we're small, and these are excellent, excellent, excellent opportunities to explore the material, you see, from many different angles that is not available in the larger group context. So whatever aspects you like to look at. Kiva, we talked about attachment. We talked about how attachment is generated from our egos. And you know a lot about the role that our ego plays in our relationship. You have to understand that in all relationships, the fundamental thing that is in relationship is your ego. Now, to the extent that your ego is disintegrated or dysfunctional, to that same extent you will suffer in your relationships, your relationship with other people, moreover, even in your relationship with yourself. One of the things that we always overlook, and when we talk about relationships, is that the most important relationship that you're going to have on this planet is your relationship with yourself. And if fundamentally you're not in ma'at, not in balance, not in harmony, not in a healthy relationship with yourself, then by definition, you will not be in a healthy relationship with another human being. That's not possible. It is fundamentally the psychological equivalent of the problem with love. If I don't love myself, then by definition, I will not love you. I don't have the capacity. So everything begins with ego. And you will find as you look deeper behind the surface of life, when you start really looking for the answers to life's major problems, you will almost always find that the only problematic thing in man, in woman, is ego. And so therefore, to the extent you can manage your ego, to that same extent you will make spiritual progress, you will experience more love, more joy, more bliss, more everything. And of course, to the extent that you can't manage your ego, to that same extent you will suffer. This is the thing in us that suffers. This is the thing that is miserable in us, you see. And this is where the work begins. In fact, it might not be a bad idea that we do a 5 or 6 series workshop just on managing ego, where I can go into the various technologies for managing ego, because then we're finally at the threshold of spiritual practice, properly speaking. So maybe we will do, we only have 2 more sessions this year. Maybe after this session, we will do a series. And Sister Keep, I might make it a long series, maybe a 10 workshop series, where I'll talk about meditations and spiritual life from the perspective of managing ego. And we will cover meditation, the yogas, the whole, big picture, because I think there's enough fundamental material to do that with. Yes.
That's a question. In relationship, and you're speaking about relationship with self.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that comes to mind immediately is loving yourself. Now, outside of that, what other relationships would you have? I think everything else follows.
Yes. Well, certainly you got to love, but the question becomes, what kind of self is it? We all have an image of ourselves. Now, let's say we have an image of ourselves that we don't like, an image of ourselves that is really damaged, an image of ourselves that is contemptuous or inferior. Then we cannot move toward embracing that own deep felt sense of who we are. If we have a deep-rooted sense of inferiority, for instance, right? I'm a bad person, I'm an ugly person, I'm a stupid person, I'm a fat person, or whatever. All of these are very negative observation about ourselves. And we cannot move toward it. Psychologically, we cannot emotionally move toward embracing our own sense of self because of this inferiority that is sitting inside of us. So now when we can't do that, right, we're in a state of contempt, self-contempt. So we're in a bad relationship with ourselves. We don't like ourselves. from that, we have the other extreme. When we go into the other extreme, well, now we're too superior. We start suffering from a superiority complex. You see, I'm all this and I'm all that, which is blown way out of proportion, right? So we have all literally become, subjectively speaking, psychotic. You know, we're living in our own dream worlds. You see, we're doing what Don Quixote did, a great warrior fighting windmills, thinking that they're dragons. You see, we become great in our own eyes. You see, and then therefore we leap into relationships. Now, the interesting thing is that because this work is so critical in the formation of ego, now bear in mind most of this stuff is fully formulated by the time you're 5, 6. It's in place. And then the rest of your life is just an add-on to that. You see? And therefore it becomes crystallized very early in life, the ego complex. And that becomes the most difficult challenge for all of us, particularly on the spiritual path. Yes, sister?
I'm wondering, because this is what I'm guilty of. My ego is so low and messed up and torn out of, out of shape, that I love people more than I love myself.
That's never possible. You see, that's the mistake.
I overcompensate?
You're overcompensating. And it's certainly not love. What it is, you make a greater effort to please people. You see, but you shouldn't confuse your effort to please a person with loving a person. Because fundamentally, you're out with a begging bowl. Your pleasing is a methodology for manipulating those individuals in order to feed you some sense of worth, some sense of value. But it is not love, you see, because there's always something you're trying to get from them, however subtle it may be. Yes, you see, that's a part of the difficulty, because in our culture, we have so little knowledge about that. Now, Stephanie, they don't know, but I know that you're a clinical therapist and you've been through all the training. And I'm telling you that as you go through all the training, you will not get this kind of knowledge because it, quite frankly, is not dealt with in the Western models. The Jungian or the Adlerian or models do not cover this thing. The Freudian models, they don't get that deep. But in any case, that's not love. So we have to clear that up. That's what we call ego mythology, and I strongly suggest that during our break you take advantage of these people meeting you for the first time and literally force them to share with you that insight. I've worked very hard over the past couple of months to share all that I have with them, so they are duty bound, therefore, to share in return all that they have with you, because that will take up 4 or 5 workshops. But I don't want to not fully answer your question and leave you without some way to pursue it. But that is a great misconception that I don't love myself. I love other people more than I love myself. Now, this is just nonsense. This is one of the greatest forms of self-deception that you can practice on yourself, guaranteed to get you into a victim state of mind quickly. And then you start feeling victimized. Oh, everybody take advantage of me because I'm too loving and easygoing. No, not at all. You see, it is almost like a person that goes and lay out in the middle of the expressway, cars are hitting them, and then they say, oh, these cars are going out of the way to hit me. No, you lay yourself out there, right? You want to play the martyr. It's the martyr syndrome, right? You see, if you can't be the greatest benefactor in the world, you will be the greatest sufferer. So everybody's in competition to become the greatest sufferer. And you can listen closely. It's really quite hilarious when you listen. Everybody is telling each other how much they're suffering. Oh, my suffering is greater than your suffering. Oh, man, I'm suffering way more. I'm the #1 sufferer. This is madness, right? So they're all competing to become the #1 miserable person on the planet. It is nonsense. It is nuts. And it begins in this area. So we talked some about that. And again, I'm just helping catch up a few of you who weren't at the last session. So we talked about that. We, interestingly enough, got into really beginning to look at some of the methodologies for managing attachment and relationships. We talked about practicing the discipline and love and things of that nature. But in any case, today again, because there's so few of us here, or at least there was so few of us here, I thought that we would just take advantage of this session to kind of review, revisit, and generally address certain things from the floor. So we're starting with a few commentaries on ego. So now we can move on from wherever you like to go. All right, now y'all will be easy on me here because I know you all got different areas that interest in. Yes.
The last time I was here, we were talking about, security and how a lot of what we try and tell our children, is it kind of like it's based upon fear in a sense. And I went home and I thought about that a lot, and I kept thinking about this thing that we call pride, because there are a lot of things that are going on in my life that I know that I can change, but it's just a problem of me having this pride. And I was like, I thought about it a lot, and I said, well, pride is just another word for fear, because I'm afraid to reach out, because I'm afraid of what's going to happen. I'm afraid I'm going to go to that snake and it's going to bite me. I really don't know how to get over that fear, because it comes in so many different forms.
Yes, yes. Very excellent point. Because again, Loretta, what you are moving in again is the territory of the dysfunctional ego. All right. When we talk about pride, there's kind of different types of pride. It's basically two categories. There's the real deal, right? And then there's false pride. Right. It is this false pride that is giving us the flux, because it is rooted in mythology that we've created about ourselves. False pride. In fact, we define ego in the negative sense of the word as the false basis for your pride. Right? You're proud based on a false premise about yourself. So your very premise about yourself is false to begin with. You see, naturally deep down inside, the unconscious is not deceived by that. And therefore, when you are now challenged with a situation that requires you to really act out of the contents that you have based your pride on, knowing deep down inside you really don't have it, you recoil from the situation. You recoil. For fear of what? Of exposure. What is it that you are fearing exactly? Have you gone into it?
Yes, I have.
Let us go into it. What is it that you are fearing? What is the anatomy of fear? Because fear and doubt are the two greatest barriers toward personal growth. Fear and doubt. The conquest of your fears and doubt will automatically liberate you. That's all liberation is about. So let us look at this fear and this doubt, and let us begin to examine. Fear. What is fear? What are the psychodynamics underlying fear? We know there's two fundamental emotions, or two fundamental directions that emotions move us, because emotion is just that energy that moves us. That's why we call it emotion. It's the energy that produces motion, right? And these motions are towards and away, all of them. We either psychologically, physically, intellectually move toward a thing, or we move away from it. Fear is the retraction, the recalling, the movement away from. Love is the movement toward. Okay? So love moves us towards, fear moves us away from that we are having perception of being a threat to our well-being. Love moves us toward that which we have the perception will enhance our well-being. In a simple sense, those are the things. Now, the problem with this fear and this relationship to our pride, which in turn is connected to our ego and our image of ourselves, That is the most difficult part, because there's always this fear of being exposed for not being who you are. You see, you go into a relationship, and at a certain point in that relationship, you are challenged to go all the way into it now. And that requires being exposed. So we live with this fear of being exposed, right? For someone finding out that we are not this person, this that we have created like Dr. Frankenstein, and turned loose on the unsuspecting public, right? Deep down inside, you know that I am not this person who's full of love, full of compassion, full of kindness, full of tolerance. You know that you don't have none of that stuff, spiritually speaking. And now when the situation calls for the demonstration of these qualities, knowing that you can't just demonstrate those qualities in a relationship, you become full of fear and you seek to escape. You seek to withdraw. So you're right, it is fear. It is a fear of being discovered that you are not all that you have presented yourself to be. And for a person who have only ego mythology, nothing could be more dangerous, more frightening. You see? In fact, you can't see how you will live if you have been exposed. You see? And so now you cling, right? You move away from it. And that becomes difficult. You ask, how do you move away from it? Quite frankly, you can't. Someone has to work with you. See? Someone has to cajole you. Someone has to literally hold your hand to get you out of that. Because we're too afraid. We're too wrought with fear, you see, to do it on our own volition. We can't. That's why we're in this situation that we're in. It's very difficult. Are you all following her point? Mm-hmm. Because her dilemma is all our dilemmas. And if you can feel in yourself, and you know that there's a lot of who you are that has been put in check, the real you never makes it into the relationship. Because there's a great fear. The fear may be, oh, they may take advantage of me. That's very often one of the big ones. If I really, go all out, now they're going to take advantage of me and they're going to use me. You see?
What does that say? Misuse.
Or misuse me. That's right. Misuse me. And then there's that fear. There's that fear. Yes, Stephanie?
Well, now that we're bringing that up, that made me go soul searching.
Yeah.
I just had a thought that my relationship with men haven't been working because of fear that I need to be in control. And the man is supposed to be in control.
Yes.
And
you can't trust this guy to be in control of nothing.
And it came down
that is
to,
a scary thought.
It came down to that they just didn't want to be with me because I'm not manipulative, because
Yes.
you say in my ego,
Yes.
I'm searching for love from them because
Yes.
I don't have love for myself.
Yes.
And then it comes down to the advantage, taking advantage of and
Yes.
misusing me
Yes.
because I put myself out there.
Yes. Yes.
And I'm just, oh goodness, this fear is just messing me up.
It's terrifying.
Yeah.
It is crippling. It is crippling. You're always on the defensive. You're always, plotting, strategizing, scheming. You're never truly relaxed in the relationship. It's a tremendous thing. But the whole challenge that we are all confronted with in life is the conquest of our fears and identities. That's really the bottom line. Now the question is that we have to first become aware of what our fears are. Because many of us have created this image of ourselves, this ego mythology that goes around saying, I'm not afraid of anything. I have no fears. So it takes a long time just to be able to come up out of denial and acknowledge the fact that I have some fear. And there's nothing wrong with me. That doesn't make me a horrible human being. It doesn't mean that, I'm the worst scum of the earth. No, you're just normal like the rest of us. We have our fears. We have our doubts. And doubt because your question was on certainty as well. Doubt, of course, is about what? When you have doubt about a thing, that means you can't be certain about a thing. And so where there's doubt, then there's an effort to transcend that doubt by trying to assure yourself that your outcome will be exactly how you plan. Now the problem with that nobody's outcome is ever exactly the way they plan to be. Right? So doubt is there. You're not certain. And yet there's a need in you to be certain because you're afraid. Oh, I'm too afraid to go into the unknown. I don't know what's going to happen. Wow. Now how can I make this experience that is waiting there for me? How can I make that less of a threat? Right? Let me get more knowledge about it, what's going to happen. Let me be able to predict it. Let me, in fact, be able to control it, as Stephanie says. So when a person has a lot of doubt, you will find they seek to control. Because there's a lot of fear going on. Right? And if the doubt is too much, can you do a thing? Yeah, it can. It depends. Fear can very often escalate into full-blown paranoia.
So what ends up happening, I know for myself, when that certainty, when that balance isn't there, I just can't make a decision. I can't bring myself to do the things that I know that I'm supposed to do. I'll sit back and I'll convince myself that this is the reason why that this is happening.
Right.
I'm not doing anything wrong.
Right.
It's this other person.
Yes.
And I don't want to be misused. I've been misused so much.
Yes.
You know.
Yes.
So I can come up with some very good reasons as to why I should hold on to my feeling, but within me there's this voice that's saying, Laretha, you know that's not the way it's supposed to be.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that just is a testimony to the quality of your homework, that kind of level of honesty that you can bring to the thing. And that, in fact, is the one of the healing components of getting out of this situation, is that kind of honesty that you're able to bring to it. You're right, we tend to rationalize and justify our recoiling, our contracting, our separating from, you know? And then that shuts down growth. And how do you feel in that contracted state? Does it feel good?
No, actually, because then I go back and then that bubbles up a level of guilt.
Yes.
And then, you know, I go through a withdrawal, and it just kind of like I can't get away from that situation because it's always around me.
Yeah.
So I don't say anything, which causes more problems, because then, you know, it comes to a point where you know, it's just, you know that you're doing this person wrong, or this situation that you're confronted with, it's just not taken care of right.
Yes.
And I can feel like, I know, I just say that this is, if I can just only get over this fear, then I can go on, but that holds me back.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to go forward.
Well, the conquest of fear and doubt are the first barriers to be crossed in any authentic spiritual program of development. So we will talk some today then about the conquest of this fear and this doubt. As I said, the first thing is to get in touch with your fear and your doubts. You see, you can drop anything. Basically, our fears are of pain. We fear that those situations that we feel will cause us some fundamental. I'm using pain in a wide sense of the word, okay? Not just limited to physical pain. Of course, we all can clearly understand we avoid anything that we think will hurt us physically. But I want you to also understand that there's an avoidance of anything that you have the perception will hurt you emotionally, psychologically, you know, intellectually, spiritually, financially, so forth, so on, socially. So across that whole spectrum, whenever the mind, and this is the problem dealing directly with the mind here, okay? Whenever the mind is having a perception of an event, person, circumstance, situation as being threatening, that it's going to result in some pain, it's going to generate this fear. Those of you who went through the anger thing will recall that we reduce anger fundamentally to being rooted in fear, didn't we? Right? So naturally you will get angry, anger and all these other issues will will begin to form around the same issue. But fundamentally, you are afraid of pain. Fundamentally, the fears of pain, the fears of loss. Now, look at what you are clinging to. Pause with me for a moment. Consider, what are you clinging to that you're so fearful of losing? You don't have anything. Fundamentally. What are you so afraid of losing? What are you clinging to, fearful of loss?
Peace of mind.
You don't have peace of mind. What are you clinging to? Really?
Just tell me,
Really?
You
What
tell
are we
the
cli-
truth.
Huh?
You tell the truth.
But what are we? What are the things we're clinging to? And see, this is the Maya. This is the Maya. What the Hindu mystics call Maya, the illusion that we all are under. It's this. I am fearful of functioning in my relationships at a certain depth, to a certain degree, or at a certain level of reality because of this fear of pain and the loss that comes with that. You see? And yet you have to look at it, what are you clinging to? And in most instances, it is this false pride, this ego. Really? What? You're clinging to your image. Technically. Right?
You know, I think that to me, as I've examined it, it's like I know that if I can get over this, if I can just get over what I feel, this illusion as yourself created, then I know it's gonna be better. I mean, that would be a great leap for me.
It's the turning point.
Right.
I call it turning point, and you have to find some kind of way. We have to struggle. I mean, we really do. But if you can find a way to this level, then that's when you reach the turning point in your life.
But you know, my problem is that I actually think that I am protecting myself, and I
Sure.
get this from my parents, from what my mom. The way that she felt like she was protecting us was, I always felt that it was holding me back. And a lot of things that I've done, I've gone against her, and she feels as if, well, I'm not being protected. I've just exposed myself for anything to happen.
What do
And
we
then
call that therapist, that style of parenting? We talked about four
Good
dysfunctional.
intention.
It's a good intention in the form of overprotecting. Talk to the therapist.
Okay.
See the therapist.
And that's what
your
I'm
mother,
attaching to
you
myself.
were a victim of a style of parenting that itself is dysfunctional called overprotective. It's a form of good intention, and Dorothy and Pam will run that down to you. And what it does, then it creates in that child a kind of psychology that itself is dysfunctional, so that now when that child reaches adult life, the child can't function. They've been crippled and hobbled in their youth. Right? Overprotective. You can't trust your own judgment. You see? Overprotective. You need guidance. You become inordinately dependent upon other people's guidance. You see? Because you don't know. They tend to feel you full of fear. Don't do this, don't do that. This is going to happen to you. That's going to happen to you. Now, you grew up scared to death. You think just to walk to the corner grocery store, you may get shot down by 10 gangbangers or something. You know? Just this inordinate amount of fear in your life. And you're constantly trying to protect yourself from it. It is the beginning stages of paranoia, as Stephanie said. That's what the paranoid person suffer from. Fear of harm. And they're trying to protect themselves. And sometimes they go to the extent that they kill the person that they think is going to try to kill them. It gets way out. Why you kill him? Because he was plotting against me. You know, the mind has created that whole thing. Right? So you definitely will have to revisit and look at the impact that your parenting has on your present psychological and emotional state. Because it does. It will be naive of us to think that the way we were parented is not playing a very critical role at how we're functioning socially and across that whole social spectrum. It is a fact. And the whole task of this kind of self-understanding is to be able to bring awareness to the examination of this childhood contents, edit it where it needs to be edited, You see, keep the good stuff because parents put some good stuff. And there were some instances they were telling you right, Norita. You see, so don't throw the baby out with the dirty bathwater. They gave you some very good advice. You see. But they also gave you some very bad advice. Your task is to be able to distinguish between the two. You see. So this conquest then of fear and doubt is the challenge that we are all confronted with. And the addicted person, why can't they break the addiction? There's a fear of the pain and loss associated with life without the thing. How can I function without my crack? How can I function without my cocaine? How can I function without my alcohol? How will I function without my sex? How would I function without my money? How would I function without my degrees? How would I function without my good looks? There's almost all kinds of things that we relate to as things to somehow mitigate our experience of pain. You see? And then therefore we can't move. We can't move. And we become stuck. We sometimes try to remove our doubt. We'll study a lot. But the problem with that is that you start this whole process of studying, and the more you study and you do, the more doubts you create. You know, the mind starts hair splitting, right? This quest for certainty, you see, that doubt triggers. Doubt triggers a search for certainty. How can I be sure? How can I be 100% secure in this decision? How can I make sure that everything's going to come out all right? Well, you can't be sure. Asdanmo sanentano. That's how life is. There is no certainty. It is a myth. You are trying to attain that which is impossible. And what's going to happen to you when you're trying to attempt the impossible? Are we going to succeed here? We're going to fail every time. If your fundamental life attempt is the impossible, you don't have a shot at succeeding. Certainty is about the outcome of things, is to attempt the impossible. But it's these doubts. And we have doubts about people, we have doubts about things. You all understand that. You know, doubt covers and takes in a lot and lots and lots of different things. So what is the nature of your doubts? And what is the nature of your fear? The category. What are the objects of your doubts and fears? Let's look at them now, right? What's one of the first categories? People, right? We have doubts and fears about people. This goes directly into relationship. When you are full of doubts and fears about a person that you are in relationship with or contemplating relationship with, well, how would those doubts and fears affect the relationship? I mean, this is pretty straightforward stuff. What can you expect to be the impact of your doubts and fear of the person in terms of your relationship with that person? How would you be in relationship? What would that relationship look like that is based on your doubts and fear? When you have doubts and fear of the person you're in relationship with, what would that look like?
When you have doubts in an individual, you tend to recoil, pull back. You tend to be a little bit non-committal,
That's right.
non-committed.
That's right. So when you have doubts and fear that is governing your relationship with people, right? One of the effects that doubt and fear will have on this relationship is that it will cause you to recoil, right? And recoil in all the ways, right? You will pull back. You won't make as many deeper commitments. Is that right? You won't be quite as intimate, right? Will you be totally 100% honest in the relationship? No way. No way. No trust, right? Would you be in love? No way, right? I mean, you can look at these things, right? I mean, they become very, very clear what is going on in the relationship. You see? What are some of the objects, some of the other objects of our doubts and our fears? Situations, circumstances in life. I mean, you can make your list. I don't expect you to sit here, the next half an hour and have all the answers, but I want you to start considering these things. Right?
Rephrase that. What we're looking for? You say we're looking for things that cause our doubts and fears.
We're looking for ways to give ourselves some relief from our doubts and fears. We're looking for strategies and means to remove our doubts and fears deep down inside.
And you said people, situations is one aspect of our doubts and fears.
Yeah, these are some of the objects of our doubts and fears.
That's what I'm saying. I'm
Yeah.
trying to get.
Yes.
I'm trying to help you get some more objects.
Yeah. You want to get some more objects?
Yeah.
Okay. Give me some more, Stephanie. The objects. What are some of the objects of our doubts and fears? We know that people are.
Job.
Huh? Yeah.
That's a major.
Yeah, that's a major one, right? Livelihood,
Right.
right? Livelihood, right? That's another object, right? We know people is one, relationships is one, all of the relationships. But livelihood, have doubts and fears about our livelihood, so. Naturally, we all do. Now remember, do this make us bad human beings? No, we just human beings. You see, we have these inadequacies. Nothing wrong with that. It's just how we're going to manage our doubt and fear. Managing doubt and fear. How do you manage your doubt and fear? Effectively and appropriately. Now, remember, when you are managing your doubt and fear inappropriately, you're going to suffer from all kinds of psychological stuff, all kinds of emotional stuff. You're going to find your life is less rich. It is become more impoverished in every sense of the word. Those are all symptoms that you are managing your doubts and fears inappropriately. The problem is not doubt and fear. The problem is the mismanagement of your doubts and fear. Human beings, we will all have doubts and fears because you're not omniscient. You're not. We don't know everything. There's going to be something we just don't know, hence some doubt. Right? So it's the mismanagement of these things, right? So we're going to look into all of this. Yes, sister?
When you're talking, I was just thinking that it seems that the main thing would be the omission first.
Yes,
to
that's the
yourself.
first thing.
And then, because as she was talking about being misused, I think we're not so often misused by others. We just use that to rationalize
And cover up
and
the
cover
doubt and
this
fear.
up,
That's
this
right.
doubt and fear.
I'm telling you that this misuse is mythology. Classic. Classic. It is the preferred form of lying to ourselves because it keeps intact our ego mythology. You see how well it preserves that? Yeah. I misuse. You don't even have to examine your BS. You don't even have to look at you. Ooh, I'm being misused. And the ego thrives in that kind of environment. It just keeps on growing. You see, you're absolutely right, Sister Kiva. The thing is to come out of denial because none of us want to acknowledge the fact we're full of doubt and fear, and sometimes our doubt and fears is being so mismanaged by us that it has crippled us, hobbled us, and we can't move into relationship. We cannot move into livelihoods. We have to avoid certain situations in life. We have to walk on a thin edge of life. We have retreated to the peripheral of life because our doubt and our fears has crippled us. Right? That takes some kind of spiritual growth to even be able to acknowledge that. That in itself is progress. That means it's a certain kind of spiritual maturity that is required to do this kind of work. You see my point? And so we mismanage this stuff, and we mismanage them in the context of our relationship with other people, with our livelihood, and in Stephanie's spirit, we want to make this list as exhaustive as possible so you really get a good feel for the depth of what I'm talking about here. We also mismanage it in terms of ourselves. You have self-doubt and fear. This is deep. And this is the real critical. All the other ones is rooted in this one. Right?
It seems like this is what is the hardest, and I don't see how anyone could get past this without some
You can't.
spirituality.
You can't get past. Without great spiritual energy being infused into you.
Right.
And then you see, we not get out. That is what a guru does. That is what the function of these masters have been, is to come and break through our own fears and doubts about ourselves first. That is the great advantage of having had the contact with these gurus and teachers. Had we not come in contact with them, we'll still be trapped in this thing. All of us, with no exceptions. You see, there's certain things you cannot do. People, you can be you can be someone's mother, but you can't be your own mother. And this don't happen. I can be somebody's father, but I cannot be my own father. This is the way life is set up. You can be someone else's guru, yes, but you can't be your own guru, by definition. You see my point? And so, therefore, we have to, therefore, even become receptive. You see? We have to even become deep down in ourselves, we have to start becoming very receptive, open now for this kind of transfiguring experience. You see? Because this is a tough one. And this doubt at ourself, doubt and fears about ourselves. You see? That's a very, actually this subject that we're just casually discussing today, and you all know one of the difficulty of the house is that we got too much stuff, right? We're not going to ever get enough time. But I mean, we really need to do a workshop just on the management of doubt and fear. You know, I mean, it's a big subject. Critical knowledge is necessary in these areas. So then we have this doubt and fear with ourselves. Is there such a thing as abstract doubt and fear? Of course. We got abstract doubt and fear.
Let's come to the phobias.
Phobias. Yes. The phobias.
I can see religion doing a great harm because it masks, it doesn't allow you to go beyond that. Because when she was speaking about the uncertainties, I think I've gotten to a point where I can say let go and let God and really understand it now. And then just walk away from it and things work out. You know, the certainty of the move or the decision becomes clear or unclear.
Yes,
or you well, no, I shouldn't do this. That's not going to work.
Yeah.
That's going to be failure.
Yeah.
But religion covers that,
Sure.
masks that so much
Sure.
that you really don't.
That's one of the great
The
tragedy
tools
of
to get
organized
through
religion, is that, as Nietzsche says, it has become like an opiate. It is the opiate of the people. It is the great drug, the great addiction. Religion can become an addiction. And of all the addictions, organized religion is the greatest addiction that can happen to the human mind. Because it is a kind of an addiction that soothes the symptoms so effectively, right? That you never move into any depth inside of your being. Organized religion, and then remember, I'm making a distinction between religion and spirituality, entirely two different phenomena, unrelated, unconnected at all, right? Whereas religion is just man's attempt to alleviate and give themselves some relief from their doubts and fears. That's all religion is, right? Whereas spirituality is to embrace the fears, to transcend them. Maharaji used to say, the way you deal with your doubts and fears, first you greet them, you meet them, you defeat them. It's a very different movement. You see my point? You greet it, you meet it, then you defeat it. You don't run from it. You move into it. Maharaji used to always say that the best place to conquer your fear of tigers is in the jungle. It's in the jungle. Because that gives you the real deal. You see? Religion is the opposite. Religion is the attempt of the conquest of doubts and fear by moving as far into mythology as you can go. Right? As far as you can go. And you're right, Sister Kiva, the results have been devastating. We all know how many people have died needlessly in religious wars. There have been more people who have died in religious wars than in all wars. Totally, right? Just madness. But we fail to see that the damage that religion have done to the mindsets of men and women is even more vast. It is probably the number one basis of all mental illnesses. Some misconstrued worldview that has been informed by some kind of religious addiction, religious misunderstanding. It's very deep. So you're right. So these religions can fall into. I mean, there's all kinds of things. The devil gonna get you and burn you up. Now this kid is scared to death. That's a major fear. That's a major stop, right? Abstract. We have a lot of abstract doubts and fears. And this is a very interesting area. You see, all of these areas are important. It's hard for me to say which one is more important. I really can't. Because they all are so important that we look at all of the categories of our doubts and fears. Now, this is going to take work. No doubt about it. Please be clear. That's homework. But we got to look at our doubts and fears as they pertain to each of these major categories of life. And our whole task will have to be to transcend them. You see? And that's going to be work, but it is worth it. It really is worth it, because for the first time you will be liberated. So abstract stuff, right? We have so many doubts that is from the past only, in terms of time, right? We have doubts and fears associated with events that has not even, that's over with. Someone hurt me 20 years ago. Now, 20 years later, I'm still scared that, oh, if I do this again, oh, I'm gonna get hurt again, right? So even, that is the situation that we have to look at, right? So we have to look at that kind of historical doubt and fear. Because you got a history. And that's really what crippling you, because it's all that carried in your memory. It is your historical doubt and fear. Doubt and fear that you picked up along the course of your personal development, that you carry with you into the present, that very often is just crippling, because it seems hard to transcend that, because that means you have to deny the reality of your experience. This son of a gun really did hurt me. I mean, what you're stating is a fact, right? This really did happen. But the assumption is that it will repeat itself. That's what keeps you crippled. It may never happen to you. It may never happen to you. But yet that fear will not allow you to have the opportunity to experience that. Yes, sister?
Yeah, that historical fear, I can give you a real good example. I need to go to the hospital to this day.
Mm-hmm.
But my experience with hospitals has been terrible because of my illness. I had to go on the psych ward because it deals with the brain.
Yes.
And the psych ward is somewhere I wouldn't send my worst enemy.
Yes, I understand.
Now, I need to go, but I know that's where they will put me. Regardless of whatever's wrong with me. The physical,
yes,
they assume I need to be on the psych ward because of my illness.
Yes, yes, yes.
Now, I will not go, and I need to go.
Yes. Yes.
But I know I'm not going. Because they treat you so bad.
Sure. And you won't go. And then and out of that, then you will have to suffer all of the consequences.
And I'm suffering.
And you're suffering, aren't you? That's right. So it locks us into our suffering. So you can begin to see how all of these things play major, major roles, right? So now let's look at each one a little bit in detail. And again, perhaps if enough of you like, we can put together a formal workshop on the management of dialogue, where we can really take this thing apart. But today, we're just going to kind of be casual, and we won't get too deep as such. All right, let's look at the first category, people. Other people. How are you managing your doubts and fears that you have about other people? How are you managing that?
away from it.
Avoidance, right? You avoid.
Yeah.
Avoidance. Woo!
Right.
We are avoiding relationships. Look at this. Listen to me. You're not listening to me. There's 5 billion people on this planet, and we have managed to avoid being in a relationship with all 5 billion. That's quite a feat. Avoidance. Avoidance. I've told you on many occasions, all that you will get in life, you will get through another human being. And if you avoiding other human beings, then you're not going to get anything. It's that simple. God is not giving you anything direct. Whatever God has to give, he gives through another human being. Whether it's wealth, love, knowledge, whatever it is, it must come through the form of another human being. But if our doubts and our fears has crippled us so badly that we are avoiding relationships with other human beings, then you will be impoverished. You have no hardship. And now, can you get angry at God? No. God has placed an abundance of his gift in other human beings. We talk about nature being a reflection of the abundance of God, and that is true. We must just can pause and look at nature just however so briefly and look at it as a magnificent thing. There's so many varieties of food and fruits, and I mean this world is just full of abundance when we look at the material wealth in the earth. And I mean you can clearly see the abundance of the Creator expressed in nature, but his greatest abundance has been put into other human beings. The good stuff that the Creator has put in is put in other human beings, right? That's where his real wealth is. And that can only be mined through relationship. But if we are avoiding relationships out of our doubts and our fears, then we cut ourselves off from the real deal. And then we begin to starve. You can tell when you're not being fed. You can tell when you're not being nurtured, can't you? Right? Just like if you weren't eating, you can look at you can look at anybody and see when they're not eating and being nurtured, right? Similarly, you can see and look at your own situation and see, are you starving? Are you all withered up? All drawn up? Look at you. What state are you in? Are you suffering from lack of sunshine and water, from nutrients in the form of love coming from another human being? And remember, how would you get their love if you won't even get in relationship with them? And then what would you do with your love? You will lose on both ends of the situation. Right? So, you're right. One of the classic ways that we mismanage our doubt and fears is that we avoid. Right? What are some other ways we are mismanaging our doubts and fears of other people? Yes. Expand on that for us, Stephanie.
Because with myself personally, that's all I can relate to right now. I have so much doubt and fear in having relationships with people, and knowing that I don't feel the way I should about myself, I overcompensate
And
doing for them to
that's
make
right.
sure that they
What are some of the forms of
feel.
overcompensation? You become a pleaser, right? Which is a form of manipulation, right?
does it have to be manipulation.
Usually it is, unfortunately.
Made me feel so bad.
but that's what it is,
It's,
manipulation.
but it's not conscious.
It's not conscious.
Okay, that's
Not
good enough
evil.
for me.
None
That's good
of
enough
the
for
things
me.
I'm talking about have an evil component. You know what I mean?
Okay.
They just are. You see, it's unfortunate. So yes, we can begin to overcompensate in these relationships, right? Let's say,
A total
for
forgiver.
instance, if I have a fear of being abandoned by the other person, because that's one of the classic fears that we bring into relationship, fear of abandonment, right? I'm in this relationship, but I can't relax. I'm not secure, right? Because I got this fear. She's going to abandon me, or he's going to abandon me. Now I got to deal with some way to compensate for that, right, Stephanie? So what I might do in my overcompensating, I might lavish the woman. I'll buy a house, coat, anything a woman wants to keep her from abandoning me. So I will overcompensate on the material level, right? I may overcompensate You know, there's so many different ways. You know, once you have a basic understanding of this, you can just look and see. And when you begin to really look around yourself, and that's what you all should be doing when we leave these, we should take a chance to take in a different view of the things going on around. You're going to see a form of everything we're talking about here. You're going to find a lot of people out there overcompensating materialistically in these relationships to somehow manage their fear of abandonment. Yes, sister.
I'm on the road.
You're on the road.
now.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Number 2's got to be an absolver, because we forgive everybody for everything except
Yeah.
ourselves. We won't forgive ourselves.
That's another form too, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's right. That's another. We'll call it the absolver. It's kind of false. It ain't genuine stuff, right?
I know I'm the overcompensator. That's how I know these things.
Right. You bring some experience. Yes. Again, you could be this kind of person in the relationship where the man got 12 women on the side, cheating on you. You understand, ain't doing nothing right, but you're gonna absolve him, forgive him, to somehow compensate for your fear of him leaving you. Baby, that's all right. You can knock my brains out every Friday night. And I'll go to the hospital and stuff my brains back in, but just don't you leave me. It's all right. I absolve you. You didn't mean to hit pistol whip me. I know it. I forgive you. See, and this is a false kind of forgiving, right? It's not real, it's not genuine, but again, it is overcompensating and it is manipulative. It's manipulative. It has as a single objective to prevent this person from abandoning me, because that's the fear I got. I have fear of abandonment. It's deep. What are some of the other ways that we mismanage our doubts and our fears? We're talking now about ways that we are mismanaging our doubts and our fears. You have to think about them, you see. You have to think about them. And moreover, and most importantly, how are you mismanaging your doubt and fear? Because this thing is to be customized, right? When we're talking like in a general way, that's one thing. But the homework portion of it always involves you really sitting down with yourself and really looking at how are you doing that. Well, obviously one of the classic ones is, again, denial, right? That's sort of like the absolver, right? You denial, you go into denial. It's sort of the same thing. It's just same thing, rationalization, rationalizing. Give me an example, Sam. Give me an example.
I guess once we kind of grips that with the fact that we do have doubts and fears, and we don't want to look at it, we try and tell ourselves that these doubts and these fears make sense, or these doubts and these fears in some way are legitimate and are not really bad for us.
And not negative. Right?
Yeah, not
it's
a
good.
negative thing.
It's good for
It's
me
necessary.
to be. It's good for me to be scared to death this man gonna leave me. It's good for me to be scared to death that this woman gonna leave me. Because this is a good man. This is a good woman. And I don't know whether I can find. I mean, you begin to rationalize your doubts, to legitimize them. Right?
Maybe even starting to think or say,
glorifying them. In fact,
or you might even start to say that, oh, this is just how it is.
it's just how it is, right?
You know, this
Become a
is just
fatalist.
life. Yeah, this is just
You
life.
become a fatalist.
So the cards have been dealt.
Those the cards have been dealt. So all of these then become ways that we are currently mismanaging our doubts and fears. We'll talk about some of the techniques for managing in an appropriate way our doubts and fears. And by appropriate, I mean in a non-violent and in a psychologically and emotionally healthy way. See? Non-violent and in a psychologically healthy and emotional way. How are you handling others' doubt and fears of you in your relationship? Because guess what? Other people have doubts and fears about you. How you handle that? How do you handle that? These two categories are critical. Yes, Dad?
I think I kind of personalize everything. It's like it's my fault, whatever they think about me.
To alleviate their fears. You take all the blame on yourself. You play the role of the model. You become the model, right? You manage it, the other person down in fear. I'm looking at it like that's sort of like a confidence game.
Yeah.
Explain that,
Like a con game. You have a spouse who's very insecure, jealous, very insecure in the relationship, afraid any minute now you're going to find another man or find another woman, right? And you can see that kind of tension interjected into the relationship. It's becoming a problem. And you can see this person is getting really tense about that, right? And now you're going to try to manage them, to give them some relief from that jealousy that they're suffering from. And one of the things I could do is run a con game. Oh no, baby, you know that ain't gonna never happen, and you know I'd never do that to you, or something of that nature. You see, to alleviate that tension, right? You see, when and you may in fact have your bags packed downstairs already. I don't know, right? Or she may be afraid you're gonna die. Well, baby, I'm never gonna die. Now this is nonsense. You're gonna die. You know, it's all kinds of things you can go about. But what it is avoidance of telling the truth.
Okay.
All right? That's basically what you have to understand about this. It's avoiding the truth. You don't tell them the truth. And you do that really out of good intention because you're trying to alleviate their fear. But you don't tell them the truth.
So how's the model? How is the model then different from that?
You're telling the truth?
Than the content?
Well, I guess maybe it's a variation of it. It depends on how we use it. Give us an example, Dorothy, how we might be able to use the model. And managing how we are responding to other people's doubts and fears about us. How we manage that.
Yeah.
Yes, that's going to do a lot of homework.
I know I don't wash dishes, but I hope you don't leave me. I know I don't clean the house.
I know ain't that good.
I know I ain't that good.
Yeah.
But
Right.
he's still, there or something like that. I had to word it better.
Yes.
But that's not coming out right.
That's all right. But I got a sense of what you're saying. Because these are difficult to get it just right. Because most of this you have to understand is not experienced consciously. So we very seldom put it into a word form. It's a little deeper feeling,
I know I'm not washing the dishes. And I know I'm not keeping the house clean. So if he leaves me, it's my fault.
Okay, that's your fear. We're trying to manage the other person's fear of us.
I'm saying the martyrs. I'm trying to get an
You're trying to
example
get
of the martyrs.
That'll go up here, right? But let's
Yeah,
get
that's
it in
a
the
different
form.
one.
Let's put it in. It's a good one. It goes up here. How we get this one here? How we manage others' doubts and fears about us. Really, the real way to do it is not so much looking in your imagination. You have to look in your life to answer these kind of questions. Because these are very existential questions. We've been in relationship with other people who have had doubts about it. Maybe don't focus so much on fears because it's hard for you to conceive that somebody's fearful of you. But it shouldn't be difficult for you to conceive the fact that there's other people in relationship with you that got doubts about you, right? Your wife may have doubts about your ability. Baby, I'm going to start a business, right? So let's take all our money that we done saved for the last 10 years and let me start this business. Well, my wife has got great doubts about that. Now, how do I manage her doubt about that, right? I'll give her all of the statistics. I'll give her all the chart. And I'll reassure her, I'm going to work hard. I'm going to do this. You know what I mean? Now, really, I I don't even know if I'm going to make it. You see? I'm going to avoid telling her the truth, because if I told her the truth of the risk of starting a business, you know, she may not give me that money or agree to contribute. So you have to look in real life situations and see. You know, I guess it's really hard for us to conceive of the fact that people really have doubts about us. I mean, that takes a while for us to just really try to understand that people don't see us as being the competent people we think we are. Now you have to get used to that. I know it comes as a shock to you, but some people just are withholding in their relationship with you and cooperating with you because they have doubts about you. This comes up very clearly if you look at relationship in the context of cooperation. Look at those relationships that requires other people cooperating with you. Okay? Look at those, review those. Now, in those relationships where other people's cooperation with you is necessary, right? And they withhold their cooperation. They're withholding their cooperation with you because there's doubt. Whether that cooperation is in the form of buying a house, buying a car, starting a business, it does not matter. But to some degree, they are recoiling in the relationship with you because they got some serious doubts about your competency, perhaps, right? And then we look and see how do we normally manage that, right? And
I experience some doubting when people don't give me credit for something that I've accomplished. It seems that the praises and the glory go to someone else who may have just really not had much to do with it at all. And so my reaction to that is that, well, first of all, I question why would they think that I would not be able to do that, and then I think that they should know that I need to know that they recognize me for doing that, because that's what keeps you going. That's what motivates you, right? But when someone else is getting credit for the work that you've done, and then you don't want to have to stand up and say, "Oh, hey, it's me. I did it." You
looks
know?
bad.
Yeah.
Don't look humble. Yes,
I
I
mean,
understand. Well, here's the thing, Sister Kiva, again. As it relates to other people's doubt about us, obviously confidence to come game. What we try to convince them. Really, you try to convince them, right? If you can't get them through confidence with emotion, which is basically an emotional game, now you go with convince them. You give them the evidence, all the evidence. You should give me this $100,000 of our life saving because I got a PhD in economics. You understand? I come from a long family of people that have been very successful. Here's all the statistics. Here's my business. I mean, you try to convince them. Life is nothing but this. A lot of this stuff that is going on in relationship is how you negotiating and managing the other person's doubt. Because remember, if you cannot manage another person's doubt, and they're going to have doubt, you will not get their cooperation. And there's certain things you just can't do by yourself. So you have to develop the skills in managing other people's doubt. And not say that you should not have no doubt in me. This is crazy. This is nuts. This is nonsense. You know? People gonna have doubts in you. The only reason that they shouldn't have any doubt in you if you're the God, if you're Messiah. If you're not the Messiah, then people have a legitimate basis for having doubts in you. And they really do. And even if I succeeded once, don't mean I'm gonna succeed again. Because everything is so new. It's a strange thing. You could be very successful in one kind of business and flop in another one. I mean, this thing is very strange. But because we have this this kind of inaccurate image that we carry of ourselves, right? We get really offended if people don't have 100% confidence and conviction in us. And this makes us difficult in a relationship. Because now we get angry. Well, you should, then we start shooting on people. You should be doing it because you're my wife. You hear it all the time. You should do this because you're my wife, right? Or you my husband. Well, maybe they should, but the reality is that human nature doesn't follow that. So you have to kind of meditate on each of these. Remember, it's the other person's doubt. They my doubt. It's their doubt that they have about me. And how do I manage that doubt?
Like, in an instance in, you know, parent-child relationships.
Parent-child relationship.
Many a time we just ingest those doubt and fears.
Yeah.
And then, you know, we carry them on without really even knowing that we have them. You know, because I know that's, and just thinking of, you know, in terms of myself personally, that happens a lot. You know, somebody else's doubt and fears, no matter how I've tried to, you know, tried to keep them away from me, when things constantly happen in your life, and you see exactly what that person is talking about, then that person's fears become your fears.
Yes, it's contagious.
Right.
Yeah.
But you're right. I mean, if we look back up here at our doubts and fears about other people, you know, what is this? We'll get to find many instances where our problem is that we have doubts about other people. We ourselves have doubts about other people. You know, we could clearly see that, but we have to also clearly see that other people have doubts about us, right? And we have to somehow manage it. It's the other person's doubt. So, and again, we'll get opportunities to go on deeper and deeper in these things. Now, let's look at, or we'll say that for break, maybe. But after break, we're going to come back. We're going to look at our doubts and fears in ourselves. We'll look at the third category, okay, and see what we can see there. All right, we'll come back at 2 o'clock.